Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We're joined today by Angela Lewis, former basketball coach, current speaker and author, getting ready to drop her newest book. Thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to chopping it up.
Justin, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to build on all the conversations we've had so far and realize we know a lot of the same people. So, basketball world is small.
Absolutely. So, why don't you start? Take us through your background. How did you get into athletics? How did you get into coaching? How did you transition into being an author? From start to right now on June 20th, 2025.
I got into athletics from not being athletic. That's where it started for me, actually not being athletic at all. I ended up playing professionally in Germany, played NCAA Division I basketball, and part of it is because I'm 6'1" and I've been this tall since I was 12 years old. However, I was not a talented 6'1" 12-year-old. I only played basketball in the backyard with my older brothers, never ran up and down the court, never trained. But a coach saw me coming out of Blockbuster video one day and he was like, "Oh, you're really tall. Do you play?" And for those of you who are younger, Blockbuster Video was this great place that we went to on Friday and Saturday nights to literally rent movies.
I was
Way
about
before,
to say, I was
I
about to
should give some
say,
context.
it must, there's only one left in the world. We need to give some context.
Yes, but it's so important to the story because it was like a cultural phenomenon on Friday nights. And so we were at Blockbuster, my brothers were getting video games, and Coach Luther Coyle saw me and asked if I played basketball. And I said yes, but it was only in the backyard and I was not good, but I didn't know I wasn't good. So here's the key part, Justin. I didn't know I wasn't good until I showed up at practice with these girls. Oh my God. They were like unbelievable, dribbling between the legs, behind the back, no look passes. They were better than my brothers. And that was saying a lot because my brothers were like top tier at that point in my life. But what was key about that, and we can dive into, is that my first team was a team of winners. So I was new to the sport, but what I learned as I reflected on the experiences, oh, they were already going to AAU national championships before I showed up. They were winning all of the city championships. And so I got to learn what it means to compete and what it means to actually enjoy the game and work really hard. Because we had one of those old school coaches. I know you know about them, like running outside all day long. I mean, if we didn't have a gym, it didn't mean we didn't practice. You just found another place to practice. So my foundation of becoming an athlete started with being not very good and just people pouring into me, and really basketball found me. I lucked into this life and love of the game.
And from there, what happened after that? So I went and played
Mhm.
in college at, I forget
Yep.
where, then
Okay.
Germany, and then you came back and you started cutting your teeth trying to stay in the game.
Gotcha.
Take us through that.
Yes. All right. So I go to Germany. The first place I'd ever traveled abroad, my family went two places, Justin: Memphis, Tennessee, and Mount Bayou, Mississippi, nowhere else. And I went to Germany. And so going to Germany was incredible. It was the first time I was immersed in culture. And it was the first time I saw that basketball can literally connect you to the world. And there are people all over that love the game as much as you do. That's like a key as I get to present day. And the new book that's coming out, A Ball and a Chance, which I'll talk about in a second. So go to Germany, I come back and I start coaching. I go to graduate school. I coach at Metro High School as an assistant in St. Louis. We won a state title. And then from there, I coached at Western University, which is Division III in St. Louis. We didn't win many games at all. We were scouring to get girls to play because there aren't scholarships. So we took any and everybody. I can deep dive into my Webster experience later if you like. And then Southeast Missouri State University, which is NCAA Division I, mid-major. And I was there a year and I was out on the road recruiting one summer and saw one of my old coaches who was at Marquette University. And she said, "We're looking for a director of ops." And I left SEMO and went to Marquette. NCAA Division I, completely different than eating at Golden Corral for pregame meals. We took chartered flights. That was an unbelievable experience. And in November 2009, my friend Jackie Moore passed away. She was an assistant coach at Eastern Illinois University. Justin, and that really rocked my core. Like I didn't know at the time, but I probably should have went to therapy, but that made me really reevaluate life and say, okay, I don't want to coach college basketball. I never see my family. I'm living in Milwaukee. It is cold as hell, and people aren't excited and enthused to come up here. I'm going to go back home. So I went back to St. Louis, started working in various school districts, doing everything from summer programs, bringing in speakers to talk to students, but then started training. So basketball clinics, private lessons, all of that, and started writing books and wrote my first book, The Game Changing Assist, 6 Simple Ways to Choose Success, and Post Moves, The Female Athlete's Guide to Dominate Life After College. And parents always asked about, can you talk to her about confidence? She needs to talk to her coach. Can you help her talk to her coach a little bit better? And so I've always had this love of like, how do we help young people develop life skills in addition to the basketball skills? Because the basketball is going to end one day for all of us, but they still have to be able to use what they learn in sport in order to give them opportunity in life. And let's get us to present day. So I do all this coaching, training, camps, clinics, seminars, and the pandemic happened, which is what we were talking about before. And I get a DM, and it's a coach that I knew from the area. This is like bananas. He DMs me that he is coaching a team in Manizales, Colombia. I've always wanted to do like international camps and clinics. To me, this was a sign that I should go to Colombia. Like really easy sign. I hop on a call with him. He tells me what's happening and about the team. And he says, oh, we're going to have this bubble. Remember the bubble during the pandemic? So the women's professional league in Colombia was playing in the bubble in Medellin, Colombia. I have friends who were living in Medellin. So, oh, this is easy. I'll go down to Medellin, visit my friends, and then I'll fly over to Manizales and do this basketball clinic, fly back to Medellin, hang out a few more days, come back to the States, and finish running programs. What I didn't expect is that I would love Colombia and love Medellin. I go to Colombia, I do the basketball clinic, I fly to Medellin, go to the game in the bubble, then fly to Manizales, do this basketball clinic for 4 days, fly back to Medellin. Justin, before I left, I booked my flight back to Medellin, March 1st, 2021. Say, I am coming back to live here with y'all, meaning like my friends. And I did. And it was just the most amazing experience. Come back to the
And
States.
then you came back. Why? Why didn't you just stay there?
I came back because there are 3 big reasons. The first reason is my parents are older, they're in their 80s, so I wanted to be closer.
Okay.
The second is I really miss like being around sport. I miss going to sporting events.
Yep.
It's very different. The infrastructure for sport is very different. That's and then also I have nieces and nephews who are playing sports who I didn't get to see them play as much. So move back. But Dallas specifically, it's like the most amazing sports city ever. So I moved back to Dallas, not St. Louis, where I'm originally from. No, no hate on St. Louis. I love St. Louis. I'm there often, but Dallas is different. There's every sports team. I don't want my St. Louis people to be like, oh, you're a hater. No, I love St. Louis. Go Cardinals and St. Louis University. So that's why I came back to the States. But that experience in Colombia has stayed with me, and I've visited multiple times since I've been back. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh,
It's a place I'd love to visit at some point. We were talking about international travel before we started recording, and I would love for you to, now in hindsight, share some thoughts with the listeners who maybe have been curious and haven't been willing to pull the trigger. Just, hey, here's what's out there, and here's the value of doing this while you can, rather than time passing you by. Because as I was joking, people that are listening, I didn't have a passport till I was 45 years old, and I've been out of the country 4 times in the last 2 years, and I'm going another 3 times in the next 6 months. So ultimately, like 45 years of being clueless for me to now where it's, I don't know why I wasn't doing this before.
so many thoughts. Okay. The first thought is whatever you love, there are people all over the world doing it. This is for those who say, I'm afraid, I don't know anyone. Since we're talking sports, like if you love basketball, basketball was what connected me to Germany, it's what connected me to Colombia, it's what will continue to connect me to the world. So whatever your passion is, it can be art, dance, music. I have friends who they do visual art and they love like painting. They go wherever the art is. So find your people. You have people. So find your people. The second thing is I sold everything, got rid of everything, and moved. Now, I don't necessarily think everyone should do that. The way my life is set up, it was okay to do, but I learned to live with less, and it was so liberating. I didn't have to worry about my car and oil changes and tires and the dishwasher, none of that. We all lived in Airbnbs. You walk in and everything's furnished. When I moved back here and I had to buy furniture, Justin, the prices have gone up. My God. Oh my gosh. But it was wonderful. So to experience not having to worry about that. And then the obvious one, in a country like Colombia, the cost of living is just exponentially cheaper. At that time, the Colombian peso, the exchange rate was $1 to 4,000 Colombian pesos. 4,000. And everything was about a quarter of the price. So we didn't lack, you didn't lack in terms of quality of life down there either, or the amenities. It was the same, if not better amenities, depending on where you live. Now, you live in Pebble Beach, so you probably have some amenities that I didn't have in St. Louis. So you might look at it different than me, but I didn't see the things that you're probably seeing day to day, Justin. So that those are some things that were unbelievable.
So what you're saying basically is Columbia is on par, equal, or slightly better than East St. Louis, but maybe not Pebble. I
No,
love it.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you're already on the coast. You live in a state that has the mountains. I didn't come from that. What you learn about yourself though
Yep.
is
So good. So good.
there's
You don't have to spin it. Come on. The St. Louis, the Missouri peeps aren't gonna be haters. It's all good.
they
Let's
might come
dive
for
into your books, the original. So the game-changing assist, and then we go with post moves. And number one, I just want to celebrate the creative titles and the puns that you have been able to loop into this. So well done. But 6 simple ways to choose success. Give us the rundown. What are those?
framework, 6 simple ways to choose success. The key word is that you're choosing. One, choose your voice. We choose every day what we say, how we say it, who we say it to, and then the voices that are in our mind, right? We get to choose what we listen to. Critical. Athletes or non-athletes for life. We get to choose our vision. So I hear a lot of young people saying, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do. I have nieces and I don't know what I want to." What you don't have to know everything, but what's the next thing? What's the next vision? Choose your vision. Choose your values, or someone else will choose them for you. Like society is always trying to tell you what's important and what you should think is important. So you have to choose your values, such as integrity. You get to choose honesty, openness, those types of things. Choose your response to the valley. This is my favorite one because the valleys are inevitable. They are going to come, things are going to get hard. And who you become is really what you choose to do when things get tough. So choosing your response to the valley often means you need to work a little bit harder. And it often means you need to change something up. So we have vision, we have voice, vision, values, valley, victory. Victory is a product of your choices. Victory is charting your path and the transformation you've had to reaching whatever goal. As I mentioned, I was in the backyard playing basketball at 12, uncoordinated, to being a professional. Like I had to make a lot of choices to get there, as does everyone. And then lastly, choose to volunteer. Like anything that we have in terms of victory is how for other people and how we can help other people. So choose to give and share your experiences with others, and that can create and sustain success in your life.
Which
That's
of the,
the cliff notes.
yeah, that's fine. That's a great start. And people that want the more in depth can get the book. We'll put it in the show notes. But I'm curious, which one of those do you think is the most challenging to develop? I don't think that necessarily choosing your vision is going to be the most complicated one, at least from my lens. But what have
Mhm.
you found as you try to share this wisdom and instruct and guide people through this process? Where are the sticking points that you can shed light on for people that maybe have some of this work already, but are bumping into roadblocks?
So glad you asked. So I should have presented this in the way that it's intended, from valley to victory. So valley is the starting point, and that is always the most challenging because often we just lie to ourselves. The valley, the way to move out of the valley, first you have to assess how'd you get there? Give an example. If I'm shooting 30% from the field, I got there because I probably wasn't working on my game. Or I got there, maybe I didn't get enough sleep the night before. It's not because coach pulled me out. Like
Coach
if
might
you're
pull
gonna
you out because you're shooting 30%, but you're
very
not
true.
shooting 30% because he took you out.
Exactly, exactly. So the valley is the most challenging because you're forced to be honest, and that's where change occurs. That's when you create this new vision. You change the voices of people who you're listening to. You have to change your values. Like you might actually have to go to bed at 9 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. playing Fortnite or whatever kids play these days. I don't know. So the valley, 100%.
And you say that the path is to victory, right? So I'm going to do my best to put these in order and you can correct me. But if valley is first, then I would say that vision, values, voice, volunteer, victory. Do I got it in the right order? Or does the order not matter beyond one and six?
The order does not matter between 1 and 6 because someone may get it because what you discover in the valley determines what comes next. So if I'm in the valley and I'm like, oh, the reason I'm here is because everyone around me is really negative and I'm listening to the negative. They're
Mhm.
not the problem. I'm the problem. I'm listening to people and my friends have zero ambition for their life.
Yeah,
Okay, I need a new support. I need a new circle. So I need new voices. So that's what's the most immediate thing. But whatever you discover there determines next step.
all right, let's dig into that because I think that is a challenge that is faced by the majority of human beings, which
Mhm.
is how do you choose those you surround yourself with? How do you prune when you need to? The cliche of you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. And so, like, how do you coach that in your approach when people are struggling based on what you said? You're around a bunch of negativity. That's not helpful. What's your coaching on that part of life?
The question that has to be answered by all of us is what do you really want? And that determines your next steps. So if someone says that, let's stick with sports, they want to be a college athlete, right? They've had a terrible game. They're in the valley. They don't know if they can do it. You want to be a college athlete? Okay. So here's what it takes. You have to train in this manner. You want to work out with people who are better than you. You have to take nutrition seriously. There are all of these things. And if you don't know what it is, find someone who's already there. So we need role models. I'm a big proponent of role models. I'm a big proponent of go down the path that has already been laid and until you can figure out your own path of getting because everyone's it's going to be a little different for you and me, different height, different weight, different whatever. But if it's what you want, then you and you're serious that is what you want, find someone who's already done it.
For sure.
Or,
And I
or
think,
ask Chat GPT.
yeah,
That
but
works too.
that'll give you the blueprint. But unless you're surrounding yourself with people that have done it and that are going to hold you accountable, like at the end of the day, you're just dreaming. So let's go to post moves. I actually, when I initially looked at this and you're like, oh, I'm a 6'1", a post game, I'm thinking basketball, but then I love the subtitle, which is the female athlete's guide to dominate life after college. What does that look like? What are the lessons there that you can share that maybe people can steal a nugget here or there and apply to the people that they're serving? Talk through that book.
Post Moves is a compilation, 15 stories. So the game changing assist was all me. My experiences, Post Moves is everybody else because I realized I didn't have it all figured out. So there are women who played college sports, all different sports, and it's their experience in leadership and in life. So a few nuggets from that. Being willing to get better is critical. A lot of times we have, when you're an athlete and you play at a high level, you like expect to be good at everything and you're not. Remember, you didn't know how to play, so you're not going to know marketing. You're not going to know whatever field you go in. So you have to give yourself a chance to grow. That's a nugget from there. The second one is a number of the women in the book talked about how they took chances and tried things that they didn't necessarily know they'd be interested in. One woman went into project management, not something she knew about, but she took a chance so that she could learn and expand and grow. And then the third piece is there are seasons when it's just hard. Like these, I have a number of young people that I adore who I mentor, and they just want it fast and easy. And it's not. It's just, you're not going to get everything you want at 30 years old. It is literally not possible because you don't know enough. You don't have the skills. So give yourself grace in terms of getting better.
And obviously, you wrote the books. Obviously, all of the stories are important. You interviewed 15 different people. Are there any of those? I don't want to necessarily use the word story, but what are the nuggets that stay with you on a daily basis or a weekly basis in regards to giving yourself reminders and giving other people reminders where you almost consolidate that teaching down into a few sound bites, right? Where it's, listen,
Sure.
this one right here is set me up for the next 10 years and I'm always going back to that. Are there any that jump off the page like that?
There's one, what the first one that comes to mind, Kalia Collier, she at 23 years old bought a professional women's team, the St. Louis Surge. And now she works for the Dallas Mavericks. And she was way ahead of her time, like way, way ahead of her time. But she saw an opportunity and made sure that she had mentors who were ahead of her, who could help guide her. Very humble, worked her butt off. And so that's one. Stay humble, find mentors. When you are young and ambitious, older people love to help you. They just want to share their wisdom with someone who's actually going to implement what they suggest. So that's one.
Stay there. I want to stay there. So, my eldest child just graduated from college a week ago. Her
Congratulations.
best buddy, thank you. Her best buddy growing up is the daughter of our math department chair. He's a friend of mine, and they're both now going out into the job market. And her whole class, as I run into them, is all I'm trying to share that message, which is people that are experienced and successful want to help young people. However, the young people, I'm just speaking about my children, seem to be unwilling to take the chance, as you described, to call these people and ask questions because they feel like it's a burden or they're nervous. Can you like go a little bit deeper on your life experience with people reaching out, people wanting to help just because you're curious about their story and they want to give back, but there's like a threshold of, I don't know, let's call it 30, where like they don't care anymore. So it's like you have this small window of time to soak up all this wisdom. And like, how do we encourage people to embrace that?
I'm so glad that I'm so glad that you asked this. I'm giving this presentation on Monday about how to communicate with power and presence. And it's all about choosing what you say, how you say it, and what you wear when you say it. And the key, though, is be curious about people as individuals and as humans, not what they do. Because when you're looking for mentors, most of them, look, I'm 42, you're 45 plus. We have done a number of different things and have a number of different experiences. So be curious about the person, not their role, because you don't know what they did before that and who their friends are. So get to know people for people. So instead of calling and say, "Hi, can you help me learn about accounting?" Say, "Hi, I'm new at accounting. Of course, I would love insight. However, I'd love to take you lunch, or I would love to learn more about your path." Ask about their journey, not ask for an opportunity. Because you don't cold call someone and say, "Can you hire me for a job?" No, you cold call and say, "I've researched your background. I've read something you wrote. I saw your post. I'd love to know more about how you got to where you are." That is
Yeah,
so different.
and people want to tell their story, and you can learn a lot just by that.
That's it. So asking about their journey is key. And then whatever they tell you to do, they might say, "Read this, look at this, do it," and then let them know how it went.
Yep. Yep.
Because most people won't do that. And I've been guilty of that. People have told me things. So I don't sit here, "Oh, I made all the right decisions." God, no. But that's what I would say.
No, but your wisdom comes from the years of successes and failures that they don't have yet. And so ultimately, it's like you can read about this or you can try to actually go figure this out and learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The other thing I would say for young people become a part of professional organizations that automatically give you access. It's like you're on a new team using the sports. If we're a part of the, was it Human Resources Club of America? I don't know. Pick an industry, there's an association. Even basketball, Women's College Basketball Association, high school coaches, AD Association. Become a part of an association, make some friends, y'all be friends for life, and y'all will continue to grow and help each other forever.
For sure. And I think the one of the things that I stole from a guest years ago was that relationships are like bank accounts, and you got to make deposits before you can take a withdrawal. And being curious and asking about their journey and developing a relationship is much more important than whatever withdrawal you might try to take up front. You may never take one,
Yes.
but like you got to do the groundwork up so that when the opportunity or the necessity presents itself, you have a balance.
Yes, all of that. Justin, the other thing that comes to mind is people circle back in your life in ways that you could never imagine. If my 22-year-old self knew how the college professors or the basketball coaches, or even when we first connected and started talking, so I know this coach who, oh, we played there, this person coached here. You don't know how all these people you're meeting day to day are going to resurface. Be good to them.
Exactly. It's a small world out there. A new book coming out. Remind me when it's dropping and how we are taking these lessons learned from the first two, from your experiences overseas into this new one, and what you're trying to deliver and share on this kind of new platform with the new content.
This new book is the last 30 years wrapped into a story. Okay. The book is called A Ball and a Chance: Destiny's Adventure in Colombia. Destiny is this tall girl from St. Louis, and she feels uncomfortable, and the she ends up having an opportunity to go to a basketball camp in Colombia. And the book is really about how you build culture and connection through sport, how you can find your place anywhere when you find your tribe, and you can learn a new language along the way. So this book is about culture, connection, and the subtlety that's mentioned in the book is all of the people that it takes to actually make the dreams come true of young people. So when I was researching children's books, Justin, I saw so many mom and dad books, which is fine. Like, I love parents, like, y'all are great. However, there are the aunties and the uncles and the cousins. There are all of these other people who are really important to ensure that kids have opportunities. And so this book highlights some of those other people and the impact they had on little Destiny's life.
So
And
let's
she makes some friends along the way.
Yeah, so let's talk about that right now as on your own path, right? Which obviously is a frame for Destiny, but she's got her own character and her own journey. But if you think about going all the way back to, you mentioned coach that pulled you out of Blockbuster, your brothers, right? The other
Mhm.
opportunities you had along the way. Now, as you look back 30 years, how do you catalog those? And what are the takeaways from each of these mentors in your life that you can offer to others?
Oh, that's a great question. That's deep. Hold on. Let me get 5 seconds. Will you ask that
Take as
again so that
long
I
as you
can?
would like. You can edit
Hold
out
on.
dead time, but
That was so good.
I don't think, even while it's front of mind for me, we don't express gratitude enough. We don't actually name things that were transformational for us until you get a chance to put pen to paper like you're doing, right? And it's an opportunity right now for us to lead and give an example of what that looks like when you're cataloging the experiences you've had in life, right? And then how you
Yes,
got where you are. And you couldn't have gotten there without the village. Great. Who's the village? And
it's
what
the
did we
village.
learn from a handful of them that you actually now get a chance to pass on to others?
The first person that comes to mind is my Uncle Fat. His real name was Oliver, but I didn't know that until I was an adult. So he's the one who put the basketball hoop in our backyard. I don't play basketball. My brothers went on to play college basketball as well. Like, none of us play basketball unless Uncle Fat was willing to dig the hole and put up the hoop. And so forever grateful for my uncle who did that. I had aunties who came. Aunt Daisy showed up to every game. I had cousins who, when I was in college, would drive up to St. Louis. They lived in Memphis. They would drive up. Every time I had a game, there were people there. And I'm forever grateful to my family who showed up and friends and family members' friends who came as well. So what I learned is nothing compares to presence. To show up for someone is one of the greatest gifts. I'm not a big like shopper and I buy things and give people, but I will show up. If you need me, I am there. And so that was instilled in me because so many people showed up for me.
All right, this is going to be a little bit off topic given what you
Okay.
just said, but I always have to just go with what sticks in my head now. You've mentioned St. Louis and Memphis multiple times. You've mentioned the back and forth, family, you, whatever it happens to be. And as a Californian, they seem super far apart. But my buddy actually teaches at St. Louis University, as we discussed, right? And he made the same comment. Oh, he went to Memphis this weekend. It's like, how long is that? How do those cultures interact? How do both places inform your own personality and your background? And again, as a Californian, like you probably think San Francisco and LA are close to each other. They're not. But like I think that St. Louis and Memphis are like damn near 7 states apart. I have no clue.
Oh, I love this. I love this question. So, Memphis is only 4 hours from St. Louis. And the reason that Memphis is so significant is because my family is from Mississippi, from Marigold and Mount Bayou, Mississippi, and New Orleans. So it's 55 north for many people from the South. There was the Great Migration north, right? So you go from New Orleans to Mississippi, up to Memphis, up to St. Louis, up to Chicago, up to Detroit. So there are a lot of families that just went north. And so that's why Memphis and Mississippi are so important. In addition, Mount Bayou, Mississippi is the oldest all Black municipality in the US. It's in the Delta. It was the only place where Black people were safe in Mississippi because it was an all Black town. It's and so that growing up with that history and that connection to my Southern roots makes like caring for people, loving people, being kind to people a really central part of who I am. And then knowing that my mom literally picked cotton, she, we're not far removed from that era. And that creates a level of appreciation for all the experience that I have and have had because I know just one generation or 2 generations ago what my family went through.
For sure. And how does that inform how you interact? Isn't the right word, but you're hosting these clinics, you're hosting these camps, and you're having touch points. And quite frankly, the millennials and post millennials, whatever that generation are called, have been brought up in this instant gratification culture. Like, how does that inform when
Mhm.
you're working with kids that, like, yo, we're not cut from the same place and I got to meet you where you are, but you also got to understand how the world works?
One thing my mom did that I'm so grateful for, she talked to us a lot, right? And what I enjoy is saying, just give it time, like helping them understand that patience is a part of life. You plant a seed, you don't get a tree tomorrow. So you have to, in our time, we didn't have everything instantly. So we knew that you plant a seed, you have to wait. Some things were only seasonal. However, you have to remind them of nature and the natural order of some things. Whereas we didn't need to be reminded because we lived it. We had to go to Blockbuster and wait till the new release came out. So it's just a reminder. But we created the world that they live in. So I try not to be too harsh on them because if I grew up with an iPhone and could order DoorDash, I would have as well.
For sure. I think we run into the trap of defaulting to judgment rather than being
Mm.
curious because it's different. I'm 50 years old. My youngest child is turning 16 in November. My oldest is turning 22 next month. And it's okay. So there's a 30-year gap essentially.
Yeah.
And it's almost like compounding interest. The world has changed exponentially in that time due to the development of technology. And so we're not living the same life. And so, how do you embrace that, know that, and then adjust your approach to meet them there, right? Where people are saying kids have changed. No, we just haven't bothered to understand what they're navigating. And we're still at times in the, well, when I was young. And so, how do you fight that? What do you talk about in these keynotes? What are some of the takeaways you've learned being in space that you've now rolled into your presentations that it wasn't originally yours, but you've adopted along the way?
Here's what I do with young people, my nieces, nephews, little cousins, all of them. I put them in the position of teacher. I always ask them to teach me something. So how does that Snapchat work? Really? Well, if I do this on TikTok, I'm not even on TikTok, but how does TikTok work? You can buy stuff. So I just ask them to teach me, and then that lets the guard down. So one, be curious about them if we want them to be curious about us and about their careers. You have to demonstrate the leadership that you want them to model. That's one. The second part is give them something to think about. So I was talking to my niece the other day and she goes, I was like, yeah, what are you thinking about college? She's entering her junior year. And she said, I don't know. If I can make $100,000 a year within the next 2 years, then I'm not going to go. But she said something, Justin, that I did not anticipate. And I don't even know where she got it from. She said, I think I'd be good at sales. You know what? You're right, because you've been negotiating since you were 3. You'd be incredible at sales. So one is asking them to teach us something, and then part two, listen for their interests and then help guide them to more information or opportunity for whatever they're interested in. So those are a couple of things that I think we can do in order to bridge connections.
Yeah, for sure. Those are great examples. Back to the other fragment of the question. You go out and you do these presentations and speaking tours and other engagement, right? Professionally at this point. And you have your, I don't know, it's packaged presentation, right? That you've honed over the years, you've mastered it, you got all of this. And yet, I would imagine that post presentation, pre presentation, there are conversations around it, right? That aren't just feedback loops, but are that kind of like aha moments for you as much as them. And so that's what I'm curious about. What have you picked up over the years in doing these that has worked its way into your own delivery that
Sure.
originally wasn't yours? Like you were just like, hey, I was talking to Johnny after this session the other day and he said this, and I was like, we're putting it in. Is any developments
Yeah.
on that frame that you can share with people?
Oh, this just happened today. This literally happened today. There's a young woman who I have this presentation on Monday. And so you got to practice. I'm not going to wait until Monday. So today's what, Friday? We're going to do this thing 50 times before Monday. I said, Grace, listen to the presentation. She's a college student. Listen to the presentation. Tell me what you think. She listened to it. Justin, she said, I think it was good, but it was a lot. Like you said, a lot. So what do you mean? But these great points, like she goes, basically, you can distill this down. I said, what did you need to hear? She said, the one part where you talked about voice and tone and cadence. I wanted to know more about that. Done. Presentation is completely different now. Like it is totally different. So hearing what they need to hear, because the presentation isn't about me. It's not about what I prepackaged. It's what's going to help their life based on the topic that the event organizer asked me to speak about. That's all I care about.
And that makes perfect sense. And I guess what I'm now curious about is okay, let's talk about voice and tone and delivery and how, from a coaching standpoint, that can crush you or it can save you. Can you give me what that presentation piece is on just that segment?
You're asking how should a coach interact with an athlete, or are you asking in the context of what I'm speaking about? Is
Yes,
that
because they're not mutually exclusive. Because this recipient said they wanted more on that subject matter. So now in
yes?
this new presentation, what does that look like specifically around voice, tone, delivery, and the impact it has on others and whatever it is you're now teaching about that? Like now's the chance. Give it up. Let's go.
So the first thing is the cadence at which you speak impacts people's perception of you. So if I talk really fast, people typically don't trust people who talk really fast. It's like, why are you rushing? What are you trying to get out? What, you don't want me to hear that you're talking about me, and you don't want to know that you just stole $50 from. No, no, slow down, slow down. So the cadence of speech matters. Slow down. However, you don't want a bunch of awkward silence. Like, it's just weird. You're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Like, where do we go?
I'm nodding. The first one is absolutely right. I don't think about talk cadence other than when I'm doing this. When I'm engaging someone else, it's not front of mind. And so you just naming that, it impacts trust. Okay, that really matters. Okay, what about the next pieces of that, right? Tone and whatever else you mentioned there.
Tone, there are some people who speak really low. And if everyone's always trying to lean in, unless you're doing it for the dramatic feel, you may be a little more quiet so people can listen. Then then there's a tone that you match the person that you're speaking with in order to maintain a level of mirroring, right? So you maintain a level of mirroring to ensure that you all are having a conversation as equals, because when someone's loud and someone's not, then there's a power play that occurs. If you actually want to this is if you want to connect with the person. If you don't care about connecting, then speak really fast and loud and no one will listen to you.
And what's the next level?
The next piece that's important is, of course, body language. So that's something that wasn't in my original presentation, but she mentioned it. So, okay, there's voice, but what about what do you
Mhm.
do? There's some common body language. There's some common things that everyone does in terms of body language that signals yes, you're paying attention or no. If someone's looking down when you're talking, there's an assumption that you actually don't care what they have to say. As a coach, it would eat me alive. You better look at me in
Right.
my eyes. But some
Right.
people weren't raised to look in their eyes. So it's important to know social norms. If you
Correct.
weren't raised to do it, it doesn't mean it's disrespectful, but
Mhm.
know the game you're playing.
Yep.
The other thing is what would eat me alive with players is what you do with your arms, right? So if we're talking and it's a closed position, you look very closed off. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm triggered. But that happens in day-to-day life as well. I'm talking to my friends and I'm leaned back and my arms across. They're gonna like, what is going on with you? So what I've learned, I try to mirror the body language of the person I'm talking to. Then we're on
Mhm.
the same page. Because
Mhm.
you're comfortable. If I'm leaning back, you're leaning back to us, and we're all comfortable. But if I haven't mirrored that, then it's different. So there are nuances. So those are some of the nuances that I'll be discussing Monday, even though they weren't in the original presentation, thanks to Grace.
I think it's important. And if we think about this as a coach, right? And say I'm the head basketball coach and I have assistant coaches, it's what are they there for? And for me, what I hope for is that there's dissenting voice, there's here's your blind spots. And thankfully, I work in a place where people have realized that I'm open to feedback and I'm going to receive it well, in that I am by nature, a very fast processor, and I am able to task switch versus multitask, since people say that's not real.
Ooh.
Disagree. But anyway, and so like I've had feedback from my bosses and my colleagues that say, hey, I know what you're doing and I know that you can function in that way, but Jenny thinks you're not paying attention. And therefore, it's impacting her comfort in talking to you because she thinks you're checked out, when those of us that know you're actually fully engaged here and you're just killing two birds with one stone. And like hearing that, now I will put the phone down. I'll grab a notebook, even if I'm just writing nonsense about this is killing
Mhm.
me, whatever. It's a way to your point, at least mirror some sort of engagement because you don't know what their social norms are versus your own. How have you found this content to enhance people's understanding of like what I just talked about? Like you might not even be thinking about this, but this is getting in the way of you communicating.
How has the content enhanced people's ability to communicate?
As you go
Yeah.
through this, like you
Yeah.
just describing that to me, I got a takeaway.
Hmm.
I can connect it to something else.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, until my boss
Hmm.
in our conversation was like, hey, you need to know this. Oh, damn, I wasn't aware. Now I'm aware. So, how is your, over the years, you do these presentations and not even just about communication, just whatever it is that's on the agenda that you're talking about? What are the feedback loops in regards to things that have been transformational for others that you've shared where they've gotten back to you and been like, hey, thank you. Like, I would not have been able to have this success without you naming that in a very specific way that I was unable to see until you did.
Gotcha. Got you. Top of mind. The top of mind is going through the presentation today. Curse is like, oh, so you're saying we just need to be more human and we shouldn't ask people what they do. We should get to know them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Listening, asking questions and listening first. So with Speaker Hub, I mentioned it briefly, but we have a team of people who are all over the world, right? And so some of what is asked often is what is going on in your life, in your culture. So culture makes a difference to better understand who people are and how they communicate as well.
Yeah, I think that's a huge takeaway that until you're in a more diverse environment, and I know that's a buzzword, but what I mean is that's different than your norm.
Yeah.
Where if you're in a homogenous place where it's just a bunch of people from the Central Coast where I lived that all grew up under the same situation, regardless of their background, you're going to have the same cultural foundation, right? But you go somewhere else, if I come down to Mound Bayou, it's okay,
Different.
question. What is
Mhm.
culturally appropriate in this moment, right? Because I might just piss everybody off being clueless. But until you're exposed to that, right? Until you went to Colombia, until you went to Germany, you're not necessarily thinking anything other than, yo, we all learn the same way. We all have the same things that we're dealing with. And now you go there and it's like, whoa, this is different. And so I think what you just said is culture matters. And I don't think we ask enough, like, especially you made the comment about people not looking at you. And it's, yo, sometimes that's just people's, and it's
Mhm.
not disrespectful. Sometimes you forcing them, look at me. It's like, that ain't okay, like where they're from. So how do you navigate that? And I think even bringing that front of mind, not that you or I have an answer, but I don't think the average human is thinking that stuff matters and you should even take it into consideration. Like how has your frame on that or the people in your inner circle evolved and how
Yeah.
you start applying that?
I, like most people, would make assumptions that the way I lived made sense and that everyone had the same norms. And going to Germany was very different because I didn't speak German, and I had a German class, and I attempted to say something and everyone laughed at me. And it was the first time I was laughed at attempting to speak another language, and I grew the sensitivity to people who were English isn't their first language. And that really changed who I am in terms of the way that I approach that. So to answer your question, keeping curiosity at the forefront. So asking like, why does this person behave in a certain way? Okay, I feel that it is annoying. Okay, cool. My feeling is mine. It has nothing to do with the other person. Like I had to learn. I think this happens in family a lot. Like my big brothers, they'll say or do something. And I'm just, but they all they did was ask a deeper question, and it had nothing to do with being disrespectful. So then asking a deeper, so tell me more about that. Help me understand why you behave that way. Help me, where I'm from is this way, but is that true for you? So being willing to have grace with people, God, if we need way more grace. I don't think we give each other enough grace at all. People are gonna mess up. They're gonna make mistakes. Like there's grace and accountability, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole
Yeah, we don't need to go
we don't
down.
have time for.
All
Yeah.
right, let me ask this as a closing. What have you most recently changed your mind on? And by that, you're going out here and you're presenting information and you're trying to help people grow. And so there's a growth mindset piece to life that's embedded in you. However, I don't necessarily know that's the norm, especially in the current climate. where people are just surrounded by voices that echo what they believe, and they're not necessarily
Mhm.
looking for ways to challenge where they currently are. And so I'm always just curious, how are people challenging their belief systems and making choices that, like, you know what, that doesn't serve me anymore. So now
Mhm.
I'm taking this position. It doesn't have to be about coaching. It can be about anything in your wheelhouse, but I'm just, what's something where, hey, I used to believe this and now I'm over here, and here's why.
Recently, where I changed my belief.
Recently is very vague. It can be the
Okay.
last 2 years. I'm just curious where at certain areas of my life I've been pretty dug in on something, and I don't know. I don't even believe that anymore. I've gotten educated enough to think this now.
Yeah. The biggest shift in what comes to top of mind is letting go of the things. I let go of so many things. Justin, you're not going to believe this, but it's true. Before I went to Colombia, I literally got rid of my trophies, like all the basketball trophies and medals, because as I get older, they get heavier. But also, like, I'm not that person. I don't need the things to validate what I've done. And so, I have very minimal, and I think it keeps me at peace. And because I lived like that in Colombia, I know that you can be very happy. And I saw so many people who were very happy, who didn't have all of the stuff we stress ourselves about here.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, I guess, parting shot is ultimately for any of us that have ever stripped down to the bare minimum, life's just easier. And then you
It
start
is.
looking around, it's, oh, I want that. And then you get it and it's entertaining and then it just sits there and collects dust. So, how are we purging the
Yeah.
things that you're adding, right?
Oh,
And
yes. Oh, I wanted to mention this because you said something that triggered it. My friends and I share. Like I live in a my way of being is very communal.
yeah,
And so if someone needs a lamp, come get the lamp. I'm not attached to the lamp. If you I mean, I'm a big believer in if you need a place to stay, I got you. So my
mhm,
people come, my place is always open. Just let me know you're on the way. That's
yep.
it. So I live that's a big thing is being attached to all the things and feeling being territorial about space. No, we
Mhm.
need community and people.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. Okay, final wrap. Where can people find you? If they want to buy your books, if they want to engage you as a speaker, if they want to learn more.
You can reach out to me, AngelaRLewis.com. Remember Angela R. Lewis. And then on Instagram, the Angela R. Lewis, and LinkedIn, Angela R. Lewis in Dallas. So remember the R, Angela R.
Since most
Thank
people
you.
aren't going to remember that, we're going to put it in the show notes, and I'm pretty sure that she'll be happy for you to reach out, as she has now claimed the word "the" in front of her name, which is like Ohio State University, which takes you to a different level. Coach, appreciate you taking the time to be here today. It's been fun. Looking forward to
Thanks,
the book when
Justin.
it comes out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.